This week at the Kayak Fishing Show, we're at Slippery Winds Lodge. We're going out to Yoke Lake, and we're targeting big lake trout, muskie, and monster pike. There's all kinds of fish in this lake. The guys have been doing really well all week, and we're gonna go get them.
This week on the Kayak Fishing Show, Jim Sammons is hanging out with Canadian kayak angler Dan Joseph. They've been up north at Slippery Winds Wilderness Resort for a few days now, and in that short time, they've already had their fill of walleye and pike. Changing it up is only a matter of switching lakes, as each of the 6 pristine lakes has its own dominant species. Today, they plan to hit Crossroute Lake. Rumor is, it's home of a thriving community of healthy largemouth.
So looking at this map, this is the lake we've been fishing. The lodge is X. So we just had this short portage. So just carry the kayaks over there a couple hundred yards and we're in another lake. I mean, look at all this water around here, man. It's amazing the amount of water around here.
It's about the same as the land almost.
Yeah. Come on, where's your handle? There you go. So it's not giant, but it's certainly not one of the little tiny dinks. One of the many different types of fish you can catch here at Slippery Winds. 6 lakes you can fish around here. Bass, largemouth, smallmouth, pike, muskie, walleye, and lake trout. You have a shot at catching all of those on the 6 lakes you can head to. It's really a perfect kayakers fishing destination because you can get to all the lakes really easily. None of the lakes are real huge. To get to a couple of the lakes, you have a real short portage, 5-minute carry of the kayaks, and you just have a shot of, you know, big fish lakes. This one is, they said, is a numbers lake, which it has certainly proven to be, because we have caught pike after pike and bass, and there's a missed one. I mean, just so many fish here.
Stay tuned as Jim and Dan find out what a healthy population of largemouth really means.
Woohoo!
Ocean Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Ocean Kayak, makers of the Trident and Ultra series of fishing kayaks, and the Torque, which features a removable Minn Kota motor. Check them out at oceankayak.com. Ocean Kayak's Kayak Fishing Show is brought to you in part by Seagar, always the best in fluorocarbon. Now introducing 2 new world-class products, Kanzen Braid and Senshi monofilament lines. Check out all Seagar's fishing line options at seagar.com. This week, Jim is hanging out with his friend Dan Joseph at Slippery Winds Wilderness Lodge. Dan Joseph is a hotshot kayak angler from Gatineau, Quebec. He and his brother Emmanuel have been rocking the Canadian kayak angling scene for the last few years. They've gained a reputation for pushing the sport as far as freshwater will let them go.
I don't know how serious a fisherman I would be if it wasn't for kayak fishing. You know, I like I said, I've been fishing most of my life, but it's only when I got the kayak that I started doing it, you know, 3-4 times a week. And you know, I wouldn't use words like obsessed, but yeah, it's pretty close, I guess. It's
textbook walleye fishing, guys. Just find the bottom, nice jig, catch big walleye.
To break it down, we're basically just on a plastic platform and just doing whatever we want with it, you know. You want to fish shark, you can do it. You want to fish marlin, you can do it. You want to fish panfish, you can definitely do it. It's like the sky's the limit with this thing, and it's just been so inspiring, you know. No, you don't have to run to the gas station every 2 hours. It's not. It's obviously better on the environment. It's just there's nothing about the sport that I see as you know is bad for anyone. You know?
Dan has a rep for catching big muskie, and he thinks he knows where a few might be hiding on the big lake. But today, the guys have reached the shores of remote Crossroute Lake. A hard hike through the woods has revealed hundreds of feeding largemouth bass, right on the shoreline and ready to feed. The boys hit the water, drooling for some bass action.
There we go. Here's that. Little bass. This morning we've made a bit of a trek out to Crossroute Lake. It's a bit of a portage. If you want to fish this lake, you got to work for it, because it was a bit of a haul getting the kayak over here. Yeah. Oh, I know you're trying to act big, but you're not. Supposedly there's good pike fishing on this one, and also good largemouth. So we have a whole lake to explore all to ourselves. So it was worth the 20 minutes of dragging the kayak through the scrub to get here.
Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Raise your hands. His mama dressed him up every Sunday.
Nice one.
Take him down to the church.
I've got all these fish on this Terminator spinnerbait. And you can see the shape on it, and everything is still straight with the titanium. It's holding its shape really well. The blades are in good shape, but the head is just beat up. The skirt is got a few strands left is all. This is about the fifth trailer tail I've put on it. The thing has just been getting hammered. Oh man, if a guy like me can have that many bass, I can just imagine what a true bass fisherman could do in here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh man, this guy's hunkered down. That's a good bass. It is such a kayak-friendly location. I mean, with all these lakes around here,
that's a nice bass.
and so many fish. I mean, my thumb is a tattered mess from all the bass today.
Oh yeah,
Just,
that's a bigger one.
it's a great kayaking place. I mean, what, we had the other day, over 100 pike. Today we had smallmouth, largemouth. I mean, you couldn't ask for more.
To find the hard-hitting topwater hits of largemouth bass takes a good pair of sunglasses and a high vantage point. Kayaks often make this difficult or downright impossible. But there is a solution. Jim looks at how to stand on your kayak in this week's Kayak Fishing Tip of the Week.
For offshore kayak fishing, I really prefer a kayak that's fast, paddles well, handles swell, and surf. But for certain species, having a kayak you can stand up on is a huge advantage. Now, flat out, some kayaks are better for standing in than others. The problem is, if you get one of these boats that's so stable you can stand in it, oftentimes you don't want to paddle it because you've really gotten a big, slower boat. You have to balance speed versus stability. What you can do, though, is get some Scotty stabilizers and put them on that fast boat. Now you've got a boat that's fast, but then I can stand in it when I want to. I slap those on real quick, and I've got a standing platform. I lift them out of the water, and I've got my good fast paddling kayak. I will say this, if you're gonna start stand-up fishing in a kayak, make sure you have your gear leashed. Go out there and practice it maybe without the gear on your kayak, because let's face it, if you're going out there in just the kayak with no stabilizers, the chances are you can fall over. So make sure you have all that gear leashed and you have your PFD on. So if you want to see the fish, stand up. Get out there and practice. Check out the Scotty stabilizers. I think you'll like them. Until next time, I'm Jim Sammons, and that's your kayak fishing tip of the week.
Jim and Dan have found the big bass, and Crossroute Lake has provided the perfect chance to test out some different lures.
Looks like a pretty good hook set there right in the corner of the mouth. Oh yeah, check that one out. That's a good smallmouth. It's heavy too. Definitely got some weight to him. There we go. Swam right away. Got on the little frog. So this is the frog I've been fishing. Made by Ken Dauber. He has several series of these. One of the cool things is when you're in an area where there's a lot of pike, where you're gonna get your lure cut up. A lot of frogs, once they get cut up, they start taking on water and sinks. This one's foam. The whole thing's dense foam. So even though you get some cuts in it, it's still working just fine. And these legs have the just most realistic kicking action. You can see when I just pull that through, get the hook up in front.
Oh, wow.
Nice bass.
That's a beauty.
Oh yeah.
Right on the corner of the mouth. Oh yeah.
Now if you look around me here, you can see that we're fishing in and amongst all these reeds, a lot of rocks, a lot of structure. So having good abrasion resistance on your line is really important. We're fishing straight braid, so it'll cut right through that. If you hook into a fish, it's gonna pull it through and cut it. Just swimming along right underneath me. There he goes, there he goes. Got him.
Nice.
Oh, I've got him taken, there we go. That was awesome. While we were up at Slippery Winds, we were having days where we were targeting bass and pike. So I had a really versatile setup. What I like to use is a low profile reel like this Akuma Cedros on an Akuma EVX graphite rod. This is a fast taper rod, fast action. I could really set the hook. On the reel, I've got Seaguar Kansan braid and I've got 20-pound test on there. That's gonna cut through the weeds that we were tossing into the whole time. On top of that, I'm gonna use a leader of 12-pound Seaguar fluorocarbon. But down near the hook, especially if the pike were around and you were really getting on the pike, we went with these Terminator titanium leaders. These are gonna keep the fish on and not let those big pike break you off. Down to the business end, we were throwing all kinds of stuff. One of my favorites was the top water for the bass and even the pike was these Captain Ken's designer frogs. These things have action like you've never seen. Another good setup was to throw a spinnerbait, and this is also a Terminator titanium spinnerbait. These things took a pounding and just kept catching fish. This is a really nice setup. If you're up in those lakes targeting bass and pike, check them out.
A long day is over, and it's time to head back to Slippery Winds Wilderness Lodge for a hearty meal and a good night's rest. Slippery Winds is a remote, rustic lodge located a half-hour float plane ride from Fort Frances on the Canadian-American border. Boasting 6 fish-filled lakes, top-notch guides, and even a fleet of their own ocean kayak 13s, Slippery Winds is truly a dream to the avid freshwater kayak angler.
We've got 5 cabins here, usually have a maximum occupancy of about 16 people. A lot of people like to go for the walleye, of course, and we've had a lot of fly casters in who like to go for the smallmouth and the largemouth. Of course, the northerns are always there to keep people busy, but we've got pretty much the full gamut. If it's a sport fish from the area, we've got it in our area right here.
In a week, a guest at the lodge can get their fill on massive walleye, voracious pike, hardy lake trout, topwater largemouth bass, and even have a chance at a massive muskie.
I'm saying we've had an incredible trip to Slippery Winds. You ever get the chance to come here, man, you gotta give it a go. I mean, we caught well over 100 largemouth bass today. It is such a kayak-friendly location. I mean, with all these lakes around here and so many fish, you couldn't ask for more. What a great location.
When we come back, Dan drops the light tackle in favor of a big muskie lure as he starts his search for his favorite big game fish.
Oh yeah.
This week, Jim and avid kayak angler Dan Joseph are on the hunt for the huge variety of fish found in northern Canada at Slippery Winds Lodge. The week is almost over, and they've yet to hook up with 2 of the 5 species available on the 6 lakes surrounding the lodge. So the guys are going to rig up for lake trout and muskie. Worst comes to worst, they'll at least find more massive walleye. Oh darn.
Well, we're hoping for some pike or muskie. We've seen a few splashing around, so I want to have a wire leader. So I brought some of this not too kinky, it's basically tieable wire. So it's pretty easy to work with. It has a certain amount of stretch to it, and I've used it in the past. I've been really happy with the performance because it didn't get nicked up or after a full day of fishing, it never had a nick or a cut or anything in it. And it's fairly easy to tie. This one is a 65-pound test. I just cut off a section of it, and I'm just gonna attach a swivel On the other end, I already attached a small clip, and that way it's actually one of these tactical fishing by tactical anglers, and there's these clips, and it just makes it really easy to put on and off your lures.
Figure eights, very important. Often we're so concerned on how far we can cast and getting a fish right at the end of a point on the first third of our cast, but a lot of times it'll happen right beside the boat. I always like to do a little figure eight. Now, some people say only do a figure eight if you see a follow. Well, I see sometimes you don't see the follows, or sometimes maybe you're not paying attention. I always like to, even if there isn't any fish following, just do a nice little figure eight. Always keep your lure moving. Try not to pause it too much. If you do, just especially if you're using blades like bucktails, make sure the blades are constantly spinning.
Dan has cast his massive musky lure for hours in vain, to no avail. The last day of the trip comes to an end, and Dan takes one more cast at the setting sun.
Musky, bud. Fish. So heavy, man. I might need that boga, Jim. I'm using this Rapala fish handler. And this fish is it! Oh, no.
Another epic trip comes to a close, and with almost predictable results, Dan hooks a monster muskie on his last cast.
It's a little off balance right now. That's equilibrium back. That is a beautiful fish.
Nice.
Now it's been out of the water a bit, so I don't think we're gonna bother with taking a measurement. I know we all like to do that, but right now this fish is stressed. It's got a bit of red on the back fins. Oh, it's got some life though.
Now you can see.
There can be, anything from small to, like you said, that's almost a fish of a lifetime. For some people, it could be considered a fish of a lifetime, and it's all right here at the Slippery Winds Wilderness Lodge. It's great.
I just think it's good measure to let the guy go. Yeah, that was well worth it, boys. Never give up. We were swearing, cursing about not catching any fish. The moon just got out, the sun's setting, right on a perfect textbook muskie spot, and he just smoked my bucktail.
In most kayaks, standing up, I feel pretty stable, but actually catching fish can be a little bit sketchy, particularly when using better paddling kayaks. You would generally need to choose between a kayak you can stand on or a kayak that paddles well. This is no longer the case with Scotty's stabilizers. Add them to even the tippiest kayaks and you have a stable standing platform. With Scotty's new locking brackets, installation is quick and easy, and removal and reposition of the pontoons is just the quick push of a button. The 30-inch long by 8-inch diameter pontoons are manufactured from heavy-duty, puncture and tear resistant PVC outer shell material, so even a hook isn't going to stick in them. Each 28-inch anodized aluminum support arm includes a gear and post system at either end that allows you to make subtle adjustments to properly fit your stabilizer system to virtually any watercraft. You can see the stabilizers as well as all the other great Scotty products at scottypaddlesports.com.
Now it's time to hit the bush plane back to Fort Frances as we say goodbye to Slippery Winds. But Jim knows that he'll someday have to come back for another chance at his own monster muskie. The adventure is hardly over. Next week, Jim is heading back to where it all began, Baja, Mexico. He's hooking up with a team of pro anglers to take a swing at his favorite fish to catch from a kayak, the infamous striped marlin and hard-fighting roosterfish. Hotel Punta Colorado never lets you down.
Woohoo! more tips or information on how you can join me on a kayak fishing adventure, visit jimsammons.com.